Hi guys, welcome back to Infinite Possibilities, the podcast where we explore the lives of amazing people, their choices, challenges and opportunities. And today I have a very special guest, Armando.
Hello everybody, nice to see you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Armando, when people meet you for the first time, what is your 1-minute introduction about what you do?
1 minute introduction, I tell them I'm a systems engineer that works in accounting and finance. And that's basically it. I enjoy very much working with numbers, and I've gone from building information systems, and now I build business processes and accounting processes.
Wow, very, very cool. So we're going to go and start from the very, very beginning, take a little bit of a look into Armando's childhood. Yeah, so Armando, what kind of kid were you like growing up?
I was a little bit of a rowdy kid.
Oh, okay, I'm not surprised.
I enjoyed academics very much, but I also enjoyed sports, tennis, soccer, and I like to get a little bit crazy sometimes also. So sometimes my academic grades were always very good. Sometimes my conduct grades weren't that good.
Oh.
So in the U.S. they do both. They do academics and then they also do the conduct. Sometimes my conduct wasn't as well as it should be.
Damn. So were you like a class clown at the time, or?
I like to talk back.
Oh!
In fact, I got kicked out of middle school.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, was there a fun story about that?
Oh, it was not so much a fun story. I like doing things my way, and some people said no, it shouldn't be that way. And
whoa! So wait, middle school? Are we talking grade 4 or is that grade 8?
No, middle school in the U.S. is I was in grade 8. So it's grades 7, 8, and 9 when I was doing middle school in the U.S.
Damn. So take me to that moment of getting kicked out. What was the reaction and what did you say? Come on.
No, it's I was fighting with some boys that they wanted to pick on me because I'm relatively smaller than they were, but even though I'm small, I still I put up a good fight. One of the things in your infinite possibilities is if you're gonna hit someone, hit them first. So whoever hits first hits twice is what we say.
Yeah.
No, but all kidding aside, it was something that there are kids that I didn't get along with them, and I wasn't gonna back down. They weren't gonna back down, and so we both got invited not to be no longer at that school. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny as an adult, but at that time, what did you feel? Were you like, out of here, suckers?
No, because I had a lot of friends and I really enjoyed the academics. And one of the key lessons I learned there was it's the type of image that you portray. Yeah. And it's what you're doing in there. So, for example, one of the things I remember from my middle school, I was in an English class, in an advanced English class, and I was reading the book, but I had the book in my lap. Yeah. And I had my head on the desk, and I was reading the book in my lap. Yeah. And the vice principal that kicked me out of the school was sitting in the back of the room. And he was looking at me, and he thought I was asleep. So at the end of the course, at the end of that particular class, he went up to the English teacher and said, "Why didn't you chastise or rebuke Armando? He was clearly asleep. Everybody else was doing something." And she says, "Yeah, but the thing is, you weren't looking at it from my vantage point. I was seeing that he was flipping the pages. I saw that he was." So it's a very interesting approach to understanding that what people believe is what they see as reality, even though that may not necessarily be the case. And so that English teacher, I was very good friends with her. She said, "Look, you got to get kicked out eventually." She forecasted it very well.
That sucks, because it sounds like you were almost like a misunderstood kid, right? And then... Yeah.
Probably to a certain extent. I think it's a question of a little bit of misunderstood, but also my ways of expressing myself. I don't think I had a lot of different ways to express myself. Academically, like I said, it was, in the U.S. they don't have HDs, they have straight A's. So I had straight A's in academics, but in conduct, not so much, because I disagreed. And whenever I disagreed, I didn't hide my disagreements.
Yeah. Wow. Damn. Also wanted to know, what were your parents' impression when you got kicked out? Did you get a big whip?
My parents, I had very good communication with my parents. They weren't happy, but they understood, and it wasn't unfortunately it wasn't the first time that I had gotten into trouble.
Wait, so what other things have you done? I mean, now that you've got a stable job, stable career, I think we can let it all out.
No, I didn't really do anything bad, like anything illegal. I was just someone that expressed my mind, expressed my opinions. If the person I disagree with, like I remember one of my information systems teachers, she was showing me something. I go, look, I learned this back in fourth grade. I'm not gonna do this again. And it was learning by trial and error. And it was not learning from an academic perspective, like we learn here, but it was also learning how to deal with people, and I think that's a very important thing in seeing. One of the guidance counselors that I thought was also very positive says, okay, if you already know this, then you should be able to do it very quickly.
Yeah.
So she learned to channel. She framed it and she focused the question. And I think a lot of the way I teach is based on that. It's like you have to understand it not from the instructor's perspective, but from the student's perspective. Because that way you have a lot more engagement. That way you're able to suck in the person. Because she was saying, oh, no, you have to do that. And I was like, well, I don't have to do anything. The only thing I have to do is die.
Yeah. So, it's not even in your control.
Yeah. So that kind of aspect of it. But when she said, when she challenged me, it made a big difference, because when you're challenged, then it's like, okay, she's saying, prove me wrong, and at the end of that particular year, I didn't get kicked out that year. I think that was grade 7. The teacher said, no, you're right. I mean, this was too easy for you. It wasn't challenging enough, and she took it on board. And I thought that was very very good from her part. And I learned, but I obviously didn't learn enough lessons that year.
So Amanda, I want to know, where'd you get all this confidence as a kid? Like, because everyone's trying to fit in. Like, if I didn't agree with someone, I'll be like, oh yeah, sure, that's correct.
I don't think I'm very intelligent. I think it's something.
Just being sort of oblivious.
It's oblivious, and it's something I discuss with my son also, because my son's, but what will people say? And my wife, what will people say? It's like, I don't care what people say. This is the way I see it, and it's obviously it's got its good parts, but it's also got its bad parts. I need to be able to moderate it, and I think over time I've learned that. Yes, my opinion, I need to be able to express it. And as a student, as a person, you need to be able to express yourself. If you're not able to do that, then I think it's very sad. But once you express yourself, you also have to give the other person the opportunity, or the other people the opportunity, to also express themselves. And as long as it's done in a way that you're not judgmental, you're just listening, really listening to what they're thinking, and it becomes a very good outcome. If you try to impose your views on others, obviously, then when people try to impose their views on me, no,
it doesn't work.
No, normally it ends badly.
Hopefully not in a fist fight now.
No. I've learned to use words.
Yeah, but that's pretty good. I guess sort of retaining who you are, but also just being smart in terms of communication.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of friends that they also learned to express themselves or to communicate in a much better way. Yeah. My father used to say to me, he goes, Colombian managers are sought worldwide because they're able to express themselves. So when they disagree with the manager, they said, they tell the manager they have an open mind, when really they have a hole in their head.
It's so funny because you're saying it from you're saying pretty much the exact same thing. It's like you're not getting the picture, but you're saying it in a way that one is sort of complimenting them, and they're stroke, ego, tick, and another one is just a full slap in the face.
Yeah. Yes. I had a very good experience with a student. One of the courses I was teaching, the student sent me an email sent the course coordinator an email and said, "Oh, look, I got a really low mark. I don't understand why I got the really low mark." The course coordinator asked me to regrade. I go, "Yes, I regraded it, and it should have a lower mark." But I said, but I'm not going to change it because that wouldn't be good. Yeah. And then I said to the student, and I addressed the student. I said, I think it's great that you want to get a higher mark. Yeah. I applaud that. That's something that I'm here to support you. At the same time, the reason you didn't get a higher mark is because A, you weren't referencing the people in the reading, you weren't referencing the authors. B, you weren't referencing their solutions, their recommended solutions. And part three, it looks like you didn't do anybody to have a review of your work or spell check it, because there's here, and here are the errors. So I bring in a very nice way, say, look, I think it's great that you want to get a better grade, but you have to do your part. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned in life is, meet them where they want to go, but at the same time, explain to them, here's why you're not there.
That's actually a really good method, and especially where you sort of come from a place of understanding. You first sort of go to their level, and then sort of almost compliment them, right? Saying that you're doing great in this aspect, and then you say, here's the not so good aspect.
And it's something that I think, talking about infinite possibilities, whenever you, as a first level manager, the first thing you always do is you compliment. You, as my mentors at Citibank, my mentors at Procter & Gamble, first thing you do, you have to find something to compliment the other person. Because if that person isn't complimented, if you start off with a negative, you're not going to get anywhere. They're not going to listen to you. You can say absolutely the right things. You can say all the things that are correct. You can be fact-based. But if they're not listening to you, you've lost before you've even started.
Yeah. Wow. Those are very, very wise words. Yeah. And so if we were to go back, so once you got kicked out, what was it like? Did you sort of almost learn your lesson at your new school, or did you let history repeat itself?
No, like I said, I'm not a very intelligent person. That unfortunately, I was very fortunate because in the U.S. They do something like the NAPLAN test.
Oh yes.
So they call it a scholastic aptitude test, and we would do the scholastic aptitude test. I remember in grade 3, grade 6, grade 8. And fortunately, I had very high marks there. And I had to attend my 9th grade over the phone. So I learned to do almost Zoom classes back
What? Wait, how come you couldn't go in person?
Because there were two options. One of the options was going to a reform school where the students were not very nice.
Whoa!
And the other option was to attend school with students that are, they're not ideal model students, but they're not that bad. Yeah. And also it's students that are for health conditions, they can't attend regular school. So my parents said, better go this way than the reform school.
Oh, wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you find that Zoom experience? Though there was no images.
There was no images. It was over the phone. I was very frustrated because I learned to appreciate the few things I had, or the things I had back in my regular school, because the level I was of challenges, academic challenges, was not there. But
it was too easy.
It was much too easy, and I would meet once a week at a facility, and the other people there, and I think that's when I started to get a wake-up call in life and saying, maybe this is not going to send me. I need to change the way I'm approaching things. So, and I was very fortunate because of the scholastic aptitude test that I took. I was able to get into what's called a magnet school. Oh. So a magnet school in Miami. I lived in an affluent suburb in the south of Miami, and they bused us, or I used to take the metro into a neighborhood where they used to call it the Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, because the German tourists would get off on the highway and then they wouldn't come back.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, it was a rough school. It was a lot rougher than my middle school, But there I found some amazing teachers, and teachers that still have impact on me today, and they challenged me hard. I still had the same issue with some classes that I thought were too easy, and I would mouth off to the teachers.
Yeah.
I like I said, not a very good learner, but overall, and now those teachers that I mouthed off to, they're the directors of Miami-Dade public schools.
That's not good. Wait, so if I was following, so you did like the on the phone school, and then you actually got into another school with those teachers.
So yes, summaries. Thank you for that. So I got kicked out of at like the beginning of 9th grade.
Yeah.
I remember it was September 13th. I thought it was a bad luck day, but
Yeah.
September 13th, which in the U.S. School starts in August, late August, first. So it was the first couple of days.
Oh no! Terrible.
And so I spent the rest of that year doing homeschooling, for over the phone schooling, and then I got a letter in the mail that says inviting me to apply to go, like a expression of interest to go to this magnet school. And I went to the magnet school, and they had some really interesting tools. Back then, they had a server, they had printers, laser printers.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I was exposed to something interesting. Price Waterhouse, back then it was called Coopers and Lybrand, was sponsoring it. Rider Systems, you had to have opportunity to work at a big Fortune 100 companies.
Oh,
So
they have really good resources. I think you lucked out.
yeah,
Keep punching.
yeah, I was punching above my weight class.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Okay. And then so once you're like nearly at the end of high school, in terms of career, did you have any sort of thoughts at that time?
I had an aptitude for math. I also had an aptitude for a business logic, and using those.
You can drink this water as well because I have water.
Okay,
We'll
no
just
worries.
rotate.
No worries. So I wanted to do something, and I started doing Briggs-Myers exams.
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs, yeah.
Personality test?
Personality
I
test.
love that stuff. What's your personality?
ENTJ.
Oh, really?
So I'm very extroverted.
Yeah.
I think with Michael, you said he was introverted. I'm the other side.
Oh, damn. Because I'm ENFP.
Okay.
Yeah. If you were INTJ, it would be so compatible.
Yeah, ENTJ.
Yeah. But we both talk too much, so.
That's it.
Yeah, wow.
So and I spoke with a very good counselor at that high school, and they recommended either a career in engineering type field, or in accounting, in particular management accounting. So that's something that I went on to do a lot of work in management accounting, in reporting at Citibank. We were gathering information for management decisions for all of South America, out of Fort Lauderdale, and I got to travel extensively in South America. So yeah,
cool.
So they pointed me in the right direction. What I learned there was incredible. And that's the orientation I took. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But just wondering, like, how hard was it to choose between, they're all yours.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Karen.
or maybe, hopefully you can drink straight from it. Oh, no, kidding.
Don't tempt me.
Don't think Karen would appreciate it. Yeah, so when it was the choice between management accounting and engineering, you say, was it hard to choose between the two, or was it just like flip a coin?
No, fortunately, at the university I attended, the University of Pennsylvania, I had the opportunity to do both. So they have dual degree programs. They're called management and technology programs. So I was able to take classes at the Wharton School of Business as well as in the School of Engineering. So I had that ability to do that. And in fact, my brother started off as an engineer at the University of Pennsylvania also, and he said, no, this is not for me. And he was able to just go straight into Wharton, and he's now an investment banker and commercial banker. So it's in the U.S. I think it's something that I think we have an opportunity to probably do here, because I have a lot of students that come from mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, and they come to do courses. It doesn't make sense to be siloed or to be segregated. Yeah. And it's something that one of the things that I like to do here is invite people, because I think one of the great things here is that we have people from all over the world, but we're isolating them by field.
Yeah.
And if you do that, it weakens it, because a lot of the things that I think the breakthroughs come when you look at your problems from someone else's perspective.
Yeah, that's so true. Like that sort of interdisciplinary
Yeah,
thinking is
that's
just so valuable.
and that's the thing, because like all of the challenges and problems I faced in my life, they weren't one variable solution. And like, the researchers here talk about multivariable analysis.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing, interdisciplinary type thinking? I see that the research is interdisciplinary, but the careers or the programs are, primarily do one thing, and have a home in one department, and
Yeah.
then maybe take a few classes from the other
Yeah.
department. Which at the end of the day, at
Kinda makes sense.
at the University of Pennsylvania, I lived in engineering and I took classes at Wharton.
Yeah.
So it is a dual degree, but it's not. So my degree was Bachelor of Science in Engineering with specialization in Business Information Systems. So
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Damn. I guess you got the best of both worlds then. Yeah.
and I think it's a question of if you're unsure, which I think is where you're coming from in terms of the question, try it out. There's nothing like even in my engineering classes, the theory I didn't like so much as the practice. Like in the laboratories, I excelled incredibly in the laboratories, but in the theory classes, I didn't enjoy it that much. I didn't do it. So if I would have cut off myself, said, no, this is not something I like, without doing the laboratory, without doing the actual experience, I would have missed out on a lot of things. And like the professors saw that I had a more aptitude for the practical, for the applied, and I was able to exploit that, fortunately.
Yeah, that's very cool. Also had one more question in terms of you deciding the career. What was the input from your parents, and I guess did you bother listening?
My parents actually, it's very interesting, because my father is a aeronautical engineer and a pilot,
Whoa.
and my mother's a psychologist. But they never really said one way or the other. They're like, do whatever makes you happy type of thing. So it was, I almost like I missed. I felt that I was partly disadvantaged at some point, because like my friends are like their parents were lawyers, or their parents were doctors, or they did they whatever they did. It's like they guided their kids to doing that. And like my parents were like, as long as you do good in school, no worries.
Oh, that's very cool. Very hands off. Yeah, yeah. And then, so after you finished your bachelor's, what happened next?
Well, I was still doing my bachelor's. I had another fortunate thing because of the work I did at magnet school. I worked at Ryder Systems, and Ryder Systems exposed me to what back then in 1991 was very new. It's called knowledge-based management systems. It's sort of like beginning of artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Because what happened is Ryder Systems is a logistics company, so they own a whole bunch of fleet of vehicles, and their fleet of vehicles goes throughout the U.S. But the thing is, their fleet, if it stays too much in the north, the rust underneath with the snow and the salt would eat away, and their trucks would become inoperable quicker. So what the project that we were working on was to rotate it so that you have the trucks coming down south from the north and the south, so that the trucks lasted longer. It also had interesting programs in terms of bringing on board a tradesperson to be able to learn how to repair the vehicles quicker. Yeah. So it was very cutting edge stuff. And my first year at the university, I went when we applied for work. There was a big room with mail slots, and so you have to drop in your resumes in those mail slots.
Cute.
And I did that, and I applied to a whole bunch of different positions, tailored my resume, obviously.
Yeah, very good.
And I was fortunate. I got a call back from Procter & Gamble.
Wow.
My first year.
Wow.
And they invited me to work, to go interview with them in Cincinnati, Ohio. And they said, oh, we want you to work in South America, but we need to do the interview in English. And my English is, for me, it technically is better. I speak Spanish. I can read Spanish. I can write Spanish. But technically, I think I'm more proficient in English. Oh. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that's not a problem. And I think I did very well. I was competing against So I was basically 18
You're the
years old.
youngest.
I was the youngest. I was competing against MBAs from Northwestern.
Shoot.
So I had a great opportunity. I got to work in Caracas, in Venezuela, and doing something that I really hadn't thought of before in marketing. And so I learned a lot about product promotion in stores. I learned about store checks. I learned a lot about business. There's a business decision that Jose Soto, my first boss at Procter & Gamble, he said, "Oh yeah, this line of products is only making us 800,000. That's not enough." And as a poor student, I was like, "Wow, let me have that, please." I learned, and it was such a great opportunity, and so I was able to do that.
Yeah, how long was that for?
That was I did one internship with Procter & Gamble in the first year, and then I did another in the second year, and then I focused in more, like I enjoyed marketing. I really like it, but I think finance and information system was more my passion, and so I was doing that, and that's what I focused on, and that's how I got into Citibank.
Wow, very cool. And also kind of curious, like a lot of first years, they don't apply for internships. So how did you know to jump in early, or was
I didn't know any better.
So you just saw it and you're like, oh, cool. And then
no, the thing is this is I think in the videos I saw from your previous podcast, you have to just go for it.
Yeah.
Why can't the first year apply for jobs?
Yeah.
There's nothing that prevents you. If you have limitations, it's because you're putting them on yourself.
Yeah.
I highly recommend everybody go out and just call someone up and say, look, I'm interested in. If you see a job advertisement, it's there. And then from a financial perspective, from a tax perspective, right? Think about it this way: if you're an accounting student and you work in accounting, and you're paying for your school, you can deduct your schooling even at the undergraduate level. So I learned that trick here, and I did my master's of commerce. I was able to deduct it from my taxes. So the first year I was working here in Australia, I was able to basically.
Oh, that's so smart. Damn. Wow. And then so tell me about the next one, Citibank. How did that happen?
Citibank, it was also through University of Pennsylvania. I applied, and I was very fortunate. I was living in Miami. Miami was my home base, but Citibank saw my work with Procter & Gamble, and that's what led to their interest also in my work. And they invited me to work in Fort Lauderdale, in Florida, and then I had opportunity to work in process management in what's called capability maturity model, doing software quality assurance. So it's basically getting people, development organizations and operations organizations to work there. So I started in the technology office, and then I migrated into operations and technology. So we managed all of the back end for Citibank, for the consumer bank. So I got to travel to Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Argentina,
that's crazy.
Brazil, and it's incredible. All of the work that's being done there. And managing huge systems, it's something that it was really interesting for me what I learned there, and it helped me a lot because after Citibank, I started looking at doing my own business, and one of the things I was able to do was set up a trading desk, and it's based on my experience in the consumer bank as well as my experience or my knowledge of people working in what's called the corporate bank in Citibank.
Very cool. And so, how does it cross your mind to start your own business?
It's a very interesting story. I've always I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I always liked to do my own type of business. And what happened is I was working with Citibank, and my grandfather got sick, and he had a stroke. And so I went to go visit him, and I didn't know any better. And so I went to Colombia, and I went to an ATM machine, a Citibank ATM machine.
Very good.
And I pulled out as much money as the machine gave me, because I said, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And I took out 2 million pesos. And I put
2 million?
Yeah, but 2 million is like $1,000.
Yeah.
So I put it in my pocket, and I just carried on. And while I was there, uncles from my mother's side of the family, as well as my father's side of the family, made sure that I never had to stick my hand in my pockets. So at the end of the trip, I still had the 2 million pesos. So I was like, what am I going to do? And so I was there, and I was talking to my uncles, and they said, no, just exchange them for dollars. So I exchanged them for dollars, and I said, okay, yeah. I went and I got some dollars. So I got $1,500 back. I go, oh, that's interesting. I went to the U.S. and then I was inputting back then. It was called Quicken, is the accounting software. So I was putting in my expenses and everything, and I saw that I pulled out $1,100 and I got back $1,500. So there was an arbitrage opportunity, and I said somebody must have made a mistake, and they weren't. So I called up my uncle. I go, hey, this weird thing happened. He goes, no, that's normal. There's arbitrage opportunities. And so once I saw that, I go, okay, if that's for $1,000, how can I do that with $100,000? So I started doing that, and that snowballed into having a trading desk.
Wow. So you sort of like when you exchange, like, so is it like when you exchange money from one currency to another, you can get a little bit of the fees, and that's exactly what you said.
It's not even fees. It's an arbitrage opportunity because
Yeah. So what's that?
So what happens is you have $1,000 in the U.S.
Yeah.
and you $1,100 in the U.S. and you exchange them for 2 million pesos.
Yeah.
Those 2 million pesos, if you exchange them for U.S. dollars in Colombia, you're gonna get $1,500 because of the exchange rate. Because there's a gap in the exchange rates between the interbank rate, which is the electronic rate, and between the cash rate. So it was that kind of opportunity. And at the time, Colombia was there was a huge crash in the construction. It was a construction boom and the construction crash, 1996 to 1998. And my grandfather had the stroke in 1998, and that's when I started seeing that. But I was still working at Citibank, and I was still doing really interesting things. So I was like, yeah, it was more like a side business.
Yeah.
And the thing is, arbitrage opportunities are not stable. So they contract. So it wasn't something that I can always expect it to be that way. So I enjoyed it while it lasted, and then when the margins reduced, you have to have a lot of good discipline to say it's time to close that business. But I was always watching. I was always monitoring the rates because they were published rates from newspapers. And I continued to work at Citibank. I stopped working at Citibank. I started working as an external consultant at Citibank, and then I would always monitor that. And then I saw that in 2002 there was again that same opportunity presented itself. So I went full on with that, and from 2002 until 2013, I ran my successful trading desk.
Wow. Okay. And so what was like a day in the life of you in the trading desk?
We had the foreign exchange business, but we also had private equity. So we made a lot of money because obviously, if you're making 10% on $1 million, you're making $100,000 every day type of thing. And so we invested in a lot of different crazy businesses, in agricultural business, agribusiness, in real estate, a lot of investments in real estate. And fortunately, those were successful investments. Some not so successful. And basically, a day in the life of that, it was a lot of on the phone, establishing relationships. Because we would come in, talk to the exchange houses, like the business, we call them MBS. MSBs, money service business. So you have to go talk to them, and you have to understand what they're doing. Obviously, make sure that there's compliance checks, because compliance is very delicate when you're dealing with cash money and from Colombia.
Perfect recipe for disaster.
There's a lot of legal challenges, a lot of compliance, but as long as you have a lot of good controls, then you're pretty much in a good place. I love here in Australia, they call it a safe harbor. As long as you're in a safe harbor, then it's all good.
Wow, damn. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You were very entrepreneurial from a young age. You just kind of did it. Yeah.
I remember going back to my childhood. I remember there was some lollipops that had gum in the middle, and I would buy a bag. I remember for $6, and it had 100 lollipops, and I would sell it in the middle school for 25 cents per lollipop. So I invested 6 and I got back 25.
Oh, you're a smart kid.
but the thing is, you weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah. Another reason to kick him out.
Another tick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was always very interesting, and I always liked business. My family is very business oriented. They've always been entrepreneurial. Like from the time I remember, I know my father was a pilot, but he stopped being a pilot in 1984. So by the time I was 10 years old, he had his own business.
Wow.
And my uncles have had their own businesses, very successful businesses in the aluminum copper industry. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. So when you started your own business, it was no surprise to your family members. They're just like,
Yeah,
runs in the family.
Yeah. They supported it full, and it was very good.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then what were the sequence of events that brought you to Australia and brought you to study masters at UQ?
In Australia, when I married my wife in 2002, from the moment we met, she told me all about the wonderful things in Australia.
Wow.
And I said, yeah, Australia's great. When I lived with a girlfriend in the U.S., she showed me some travel brochures to come see the 12 apostles at that time. I think now it's like 6.5 apostles.
Yeah.
And so I always liked Australia. I always the thought of being in Australia, but it was very far away.
Yeah.
And business was very, very good in 2002. So I was like, yeah, we'll go eventually.
Yeah.
And by the time 2008 rolled around, we had really done well in business. Everything was going well. And we had the opportunity to have a second honeymoon. And we came here in 2008. We came here for a month. My youngest son was 1 year old exactly on the 1st of March. And we said to him, goodbye, we'll see you in a month. So my son stayed with my mother-in-law and my brother-in-law. And we came here and we started in Sydney and we drove up here up to Brisbane. And then they said, in your Toyota Camry, you're not going to make it to Cairns.
Yeah.
So then we looked at my wife. She bought some tickets to go to Lord Howe Island. And I said, hey, but how about the hotel? She's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. She's very spontaneous in that sense. And I go, yeah, I'm still a little bit concerned. And then I go, ask them, what do we do? And so we bought the tickets from Qantas. And they said, no, you can go to any travel agent and figure it out. And this was March, so it was right around Easter. So we did that on Easter Tuesday. And on Easter Thursday, we went to the travel agency and they said, no, that's not possible because they're booked out for like a year and a half, 2 years. So then a little bit of negotiation skills with the people from Qantas. They're like, oh, you can use it for another Qantas trip. I'm like, you don't understand. I live in Colombia. I'm not ever going to use Qantas again. Yeah. Little did I know that I would come back. And so instead they gave us tickets to go to Cairns. They exchanged them for tickets and hotel stay in Cairns. And we had a beautiful time. Cairns was beautiful. Went out on the Great Barrier Reef. Enjoyed it. We went up to Cooktown. We got stuck along the way because the roads were flooded. And that was in 2008, right before the floods came in 2011. And I think there was some flood in 2007 here as well. Yeah. And so we had a great time. But at the end of the trip, I said, look, there's still a lot of business to do back in Colombia. And so we went back to Colombia and did that. And then in 2013, business again was booming and had a good years. And he said, okay.
Wow. And are we talking just about the trading desk or
trading desk
or multiple other businesses?
Yeah, multiple other businesses because I also ran petroleum service business with my father in Venezuela.
So was that like petrol refuels?
Not pet. We actually owned a petrol station, but this was more providing field services to the oil industry, so oil and gas. So we would service oil wells, and in Venezuela, the oil wells are produced like 5,000 barrels per well.
Yeah.
So if
and
anything,
then sell it.
yeah, we didn't sell it. That was the national oil industry. But the thing is, if that well went down for whatever reason, it would be a problem because it's a major source of revenue. So what we did is we had software and tools to optimize the extraction of the wells and how because what happens is there's a submersible pump and that pumps up the oil to the surface, and how that worked, we had services that optimized that for them.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
software too.
Yeah, the software and it's called the echometer. So it was based on it would
Sound.
send the signal down to the well and understand based on that signal you could understand if the pump needed to be replaced or not, because if you replace the pump that didn't need to be replaced on a well that produced 5,000 barrels a day,
Yeah.
when the price back then was probably like $80 to $100 a barrel, you don't
Yeah, you don't want to know.
yeah, you don't want to do that. So obviously the economics was very profitable, and then we had a really good time in Venezuela as well, and yeah, so we provided services there, and then coming back to why I came back to Australia. In 2013, we had another good holiday. This time we brought both the boys here,
Yeah.
and in the middle of the trip, my wife said, "Yeah, look, I'm gonna stay here in Australia. I don't know if you're coming and stay in Australia. I don't know if the boys are gonna stay in Australia, but I'm gonna stay in Australia." I said, "Okay, well, maybe we'll stay in Australia for a little while," and we decided to stay in Australia. And I always wanted to get a Master's of Commerce in Accounting because I always fought with my accountants. Not no fist fights, but like the accounting processes, the month-end processes, the year-end closing, the tax processes, I always felt were very inefficient. It's almost like if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a funny reason too.
So I did the whole Masters of Commerce, and I don't know if I still agree with the accounts. I understand them a little bit better, but so I went because I did my whole trading system from database management, similar to what you talked about with Axel, Michael. So I did that and made sure that it was very efficient, told a good story, and the management accounting aspect of it is very important because you need to know not only if you're making money or losing money, but when you're doing a trading desk, you need to know what your position is at the end of the day. Are you long on dollars? Are you short on dollars? Are you long on euros? Are you short on euros? Are you long on yuan? Or are you short on yuan? What's your local currency position? What are the operations that are coming? What do you expect is going to happen with the dollar? What do you expect is going to happen with the euro? What do you expect is happening with the yuan? So when
too many factors.
There's a lot of variables, and you need to know where you stand. Because if something happens, you need to be able to take action quickly to mitigate or to take advantage of it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So also wondering, at that time when you're doing the trading desk, did you was it just you doing it, or did you end up hiring other people to?
Oh no, we hired a lot of other people. It was a big trading desk.
Wow, how big are we talking?
At our peak, we had about 20 people.
Wow.
And my brother was working at Prudential Securities, and I think he took a sabbatical from Prudential Securities to work with us in the trading desk. And no, we made a lot of money and we did a lot of business. And Colombia was like I said, it got out of a construction crash, and it was on an upswing. Businesses was booming. Everything no matter what you invested in, you were making money. It was a great time. It was a great time, and we fully enjoyed it.
Damn, wait, so how old were you when you started the trading business? That's smart.
So that's 2002, so I was 28 years old.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. 28 years old, I'd been out of Citibank since 2000. So 26 I left Citibank, so yeah.
Yeah, and did you, what gave you the confidence to know that you could do it? You just did it, didn't think that much, or?
I had a lot of support because my mother's side of the family, my grandmother had 14 children. So I have a very extensive family in Colombia, and a lot of my uncles were supporting me, and they had also very good established businesses in construction and real estate. So it wasn't hard to enroll them to help me to do this, and it was a very nice lifestyle in Colombia at that time. Good food, good restaurants, good people. Everything was happy days. So it wasn't. I never thought of not doing it because it was too big of an opportunity. It's like and that's something I think in terms of your podcast. If you see an opportunity, weigh it out, but go for it. You only live once type of thing. And so try it. Worst case, I would have had to go back to corporate world in the U.S. or in South America, but I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to do that. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then so after doing a master's at UQ for accounting, did that sort of solve all your accounting questions? Did you think that once you did that, you knew the stuff, or were there gaps in knowledge?
I had learned a lot of accounting also in a practical work. So it helped cement, it helped make things that weren't clear for me
Yeah.
when I was doing it in practice.
Yeah.
The theories, the application of the theories were a lot clearer, the different types of accounting cycles. So it was much better, but it wasn't, there were still a lot of things to learn. And that's where I think would be very nice to talk about then my experience with Volvo Group Australia.
Oh.
So at Volvo Group, I learned a lot about management accounting in terms of a factory setting. So a lot of the things that I looked at from an industrial engineer perspective, a systems engineer perspective, I was able to see it from an accounting perspective at Volvo. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of things. I learned great things. My boss was Tim Locklear, who's now the CFO of Volvo Group
Wow,
for all of
cool.
Australia. And yeah, and I learned some amazing things about a production line, the processes within a worldwide institution. I mean, they produced about $500 million worth of trucks a year.
Wow.
And you would look at that and you would see, 400 people, and it's like ants, and like just
Yeah.
working on a truck, and you see it. And it's a lot of the examples that I use in my management accounting classes.
Yeah.
Here is examples from Volvo, examples from my trading desk, examples from the work I've done in terms of private equity. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. All your examples, like real life examples.
Examples of like how you make investment decisions,
Yeah.
like return on investment. Like if for example, in the trading desk, if the margin of the gap on the spread was less than 2%, I just wouldn't even operate because
Yeah.
it's not profitable. It's too
Yeah.
risky.
Yeah.
There's too many variables that can go wrong. So it's like unless I'm making more than 2% on a transaction, I wasn't even thinking about not doing it.
Yeah.
In terms of how you structure the risk, because there's all sorts of risks, right? And, technical risk, market risks. We invested in some agribusinesses that they were very promising. They looked very well, and then we weren't able to engage the market as well as we hoped to have, and the product wasn't there. And then we had issues with our partners, technical partners. They weren't as disciplined and as rigorous in the business aspect of it. So it's learning along the road, but it's a school of hard knocks.
Yeah. Not fun. Wow. Yeah. And then so wait, if we were to go back to your timeline, you finished your masters, and then did you what happened from there?
I didn't even finish my master's
Oh, really?
until this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I finished my accounting classes in 2016, and I still had 2 more finance classes.
And you delayed it
And I
for
just delayed
5
it
years?
and delayed it. Yeah, I delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. And then this year they told me, look, it's been 7 years. You need to either graduate or do something about it. And I said, okay, yeah, well, just give me because I was originally gonna do a master's in the Master of Commerce in accounting and finance.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll just take the accounting. So
Yeah.
I was doing the accounting, the master's accounting, and I finished the accounting classes, and I started working with Volvo.
Oh, wait, and so why did you put off 2 finance classes? I mean, just 2, they're just 2 classes.
It was
hated it.
no, I actually I like finance very much, and
Yeah.
it's something that finance has always, like the numbers, doing the cash flow analysis, doing discount cash flow analysis for me is I can do that in my sleep. I really enjoy it, and like calculating the interest rates and using the finance formulas, for me that's fun.
Therapeutic.
Yeah. The problem was the 2 classes that I had to do was one was macroeconomics, and the other one was portfolio management. I was looking forward to doing portfolio management. Macroeconomics. In high school, I did macroeconomics. At university, I did macroeconomics. I've basically worked in macroeconomics. So I told the school here, I said, look, I don't think it's valuable for me to continue to do another macroeconomics. There's no value at it. And the school is very agreeable. I explained to them, I exposed the argument, and they said, yeah, no. And they gave me another economics class, and I was going to take that. But I was like, yeah, I forgot why and I think my work picked up at Volvo. And so I didn't have enough time. So I said, oh, I'll do it next semester. And 7 years later,
Wow, damn. And that's kind of funny because you also worked as a tutor, right? So
Yeah.
when did you start working as a tutor?
when I started working as a tutor in 2017, Paul Woolard was doing corporate structures at the undergraduate level.
Yeah.
And one of his students had to go to China. I forgot what the reason
Yeah.
was. And he reminded me, he remembered me from the classes because I had a lot of good time. I had a lot of good participation and engagement with him. And he invited me to, said, look, based on your grades, based on what the work you've done, come do a tutorial. And I said, oh, yeah, for shits and giggles type of thing.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I really enjoyed it. And it's something that I think I got the teaching bug then. And I started doing it, and the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, and challenging the students and working with students. Trying to, like I said at the beginning, trying to understand what the students were looking at. And I almost reset my knowledge and say, okay, when I was a student, how did I see this? How did I perceive this?
Yeah.
What are they asking? And I really enjoyed it, and it's something that even after a long day at work, because I would start at Volvo at 6 in the morning and end at 3 o'clock, and then I'll come do a half day here. I came out of it energized. After doing the class, I was like, okay, what else can I do, type of thing, and it was very enjoyable, and it's something that I even to this day, like I have to do conference calls with Columbia, and they'll take me to 2-3 in the morning, and I have like a 9 o'clock class, and I'll go to the 9 o'clock class or 10 o'clock class and do the class and feel energized after it. So it's that I don't know if I'm like a energy vampire from students like you, but I always, that interaction with the students I really enjoyed. So that I think that's one of my passions now.
Damn, that's interesting. Do you think that you would enjoy it as much if it was full time?
I don't like I've seen what the administration side of it is, and I don't appreciate that administration side. Having to respond to students that are like, oh, when's the exam gonna be?
Yeah.
When that's all clearly spelled out in the assessment folder.
Yeah.
I don't think I would. I don't think that's for me. The teaching aspect, lecturing, the tutorials, workshops. I love that. That part, that one-on-one interaction. Even now over Zoom, I think that's my happy space is definitely there. I really enjoy that type of interaction when you were in the BISM class.
Yeah, I bet you didn't remember me.
Yeah, because you asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So those are the students that I best remember. And Karen, not only that, Karen, but what happens is this, and right now I'm having a challenge because I have students that are saying, I got a really good grade in your class. Can you write me a reference letter?
Oh, I don't know you.
And I'm like, I can tell whoever is asking that you got a good grade, but unfortunately I don't know you because you didn't engage as much. And so like if there's a recommendation I could tell the students, like what I'm thinking right now is make sure you get to know the course coordinators, the tutors, make sure that you're able to interact with them. The value of your degree is not only what you learn academically, but it's also those skills. The reason I got the job with Paul was because I used to go to him and he would challenge me and he would say this and that and I remember the first day in class with Paul. I like to be here early. I apologize I didn't get here early, but I'm normally I like to be early. So I remember it was in 317 down by Hartley Teak. And I was in the class, and he came into the class, and he says, and he goes, "Are you in the accounting class?" Yeah, I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Why are you here so early?" I go, I like to be early. I like to learn about this class." And he's like, "Well, we'll see." And it was a challenge, and that type of challenge I took on a board, and I'm still friends with him. We just went to his birthday down at Manly Boathouse on the 2nd of December. So it's been a long relationship with him. Yeah.
Wow. Damn. And so now what's your kind of role here? So are you like part-time tutor and then you do other stuff, or are you?
Yeah, I do consulting work as well in information systems. I'm negotiating with another firm to do accounting work, like business development work.
Yeah.
as you said, extroverted person. I'm able to talk and explain to people. I love to help people improve their situations. From an accounting perspective, I'm very creative in a good way. I help people understand their expenses, help them from a strategic perspective. So that's something that I also enjoy. So I think it's now I'm at the point where I have a little bit of schizophrenia, in that I enjoy doing industry, because I think it's very positive, but not in one particular firm, but in multiple firms. And I also enjoy the academics. I love the teaching. I really, like I said, it energizes me, talking with the students, trying to understand from the students' perspective, seeing what their challenges are. And you see my classes, I don't just give away answers. I'm like, okay, work for it. Tell me, what do you think? You participate. And I think that's it's bringing that reality, that application of the theory, because we have very good, solid theories. And in my experience, if we applied more of those theories in the actual practice, we'd be in a much better place. As a country, as a world.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool. And so if you could only choose one, the academia, the teaching side, or the consulting side, if you had to choose, which one
If I had to choose, I would go with the academia. Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Why?
Really? Because, I don't know, like, what do you think academia gives you? Because I guess in some ways your roles, like, being a consultant, it's kind of like teaching people, kind of. It's like more geared towards the problem solving, and then I guess the work would be a bit more varied. But then for teaching, does it ever get like repetitive for you?
Oh, it's completely repetitive.
Yeah.
But that's
So
that's part of the challenge of like making it interesting. Like it's like doing something that you're able to attack in different ways. So like it's actually something that I've done this semester. Is even though we're not required to, I recorded all of my tutorials. I've recorded all my lectures, and then I like to compare and see, okay, what did I do this time versus what did I do last time? So it's not you're not always going to get the same thing, because there's subtle improvements, there's subtle things that you change. It's like sometimes the students appreciate this example, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's relevant, like obviously in our course, in the BISM courses, we did a case on COVID vaccine clinic, right? So will that be relevant next year? Will it be a tired example next year? So it's something that it's always, how do we use that theory? Because the theory or the principles behind the theory are sound, but now you have to apply it in a different setting. How do you update it? The management accounting hasn't changed in many years. I think with your example with Michael, he was talking about he did his thesis in 1991.
Yeah, something like that.
And he says he was talking about budgets. I'm like, mate.
Yeah.
I've seen the way budgets are made. I'm a CPA also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Damn.
And unfortunately, the theory, I think, has been thoroughly explored, but the practice is not so thoroughly explored. How companies do budgets. Volvo is known for not doing budgets at all.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that was an interesting perspective, but you still have to measure performance. So how do you measure performance? You know what I'm saying? So we did a lot of month-on-month analysis, year-on-year analysis, quarter-on-quarter analysis. So it's very interesting, the application of those theories, because I think the theories are sound, the principles are sound. Now it's how do you apply it to different businesses, and businesses. Very smart people, very, very qualified people, but there's something lost in the translation. They're not getting the same results that they should be getting, in my opinion. I don't know if Michael agrees with that or not, but that's the way I see it.
Oh, damn, that's interesting. Yeah. Also, I had a question, because you do accounting and you also do business information systems. Do you lean towards one side a bit more than the other?
I do lean now more towards the accounting, because, like I said, accounting is where I still find new challenges. Yeah. Information systems, however, is something that I think, in order to do better accounting, you need better information systems. You need to have better processes. So, like what we learned, what we worked with together, Karen, those processes are so fundamental, because you can have, I've worked at companies with SAP,
Yeah.
not Volvo Group Australia, but they weren't using it to its full extent because they didn't have good processes. So an accounting person that I think was a competent accountant, qualified accountant, but for example, they would every month they would redo the numbers in Excel. When I'm like, you should be getting a data dump from SAP,
Yeah.
automatically calculating that, because the probability of error, the time you're wasting,
Yeah.
it's frustrating to see that, and that's what I hope to do in my consulting, in my extracurricular activities.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. And so, what's next for you? Do you have any sort of interesting future plans or?
I right now, I'm looking to see what my consulting work is going to be like in 2022, but I'm also starting to do a lot of research work.
Whoa,
I'm doing research.
PhD.
Yeah, maybe a PhD. I've been flirting with
Yeah.
PhD for a long time. I haven't quite settled in on it. I met a good friend at a research boot camp
Yeah.
at the beginning of the semester, and he works in marketing, but he's working in a need for interaction. So we're looking at, like, I went to have dinner with another friend at the Barbarian down in the city, and the QR code, and we're looking at it. I'm like, I'm looking for a picture of Jack Daniels and Coke, and it's not there. And I was getting so frustrated, and I'm like, at the end, I said, no, I'm just going to go to the counter. So that system was I'm sure, like, for basic orders it works, but for me it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so I sent emails, WhatsApp messages to my friend, and I said, "Oh, this is not working. They need to have. Today I'm experiencing a need for interaction, because if it was a waitress, she would have said, "Oh yeah, the special here. Yeah, we could do that."
Yeah.
And it's something that I like. It was a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So technology, I think, is wonderful, but the process that they used at the Barbarian was not very good, because it didn't take into consideration what I call like sharing. Like, if you and I go out,
Yeah.
let's share a meal. It's not just like, oh, let's get a pitcher of beer, or let's get the picture of Jack Daniels and Coke.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of the options, and like, you had to scroll like 15 minutes, and then
Yeah.
instead of having a good conversation, like, we're able to look each other in the eye and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's
Yeah.
do this and that. It was a question that we had to spend more time in the technology, so it was a hindrance. It wasn't something that let us flow. Here, this is wonderful technology, because I don't even feel that it's there.
Yeah.
Right, but in that setting, I was like, this is a hindrance. It's an obstacle. I had to overcome that obstacle just to get the picture of Jack Daniels and Coke. So I think that's an opportunity in terms of information systems, in terms of business processes.
Ah, that's pretty good. Yeah. And so we're nearly at the end of the podcast, so we're gonna drop some deep questions. So Armando, to you, what do you think the meaning of life is?
The meaning of life, I think, is making do with what you have and enjoying what you're doing. We had a good lunch today with some of my colleagues in accounting, and they're, oh, but this is frustrating and this. I'm like, you have to enjoy it. If you start off with I don't know if you in the classes, Karen, that you've taken with me, do I seem happy? Do I seem like I'm enjoying?
You're pretty upbeat.
I'm enjoy, because I enjoy what I'm doing, and if you do that in anything you're doing, you'll be in a good place. And I think that's what the meaning of life is. Whatever you're doing, enjoy doing it. If you don't enjoy doing it, no matter if it costs you money, no matter if you won't have as nice a lifestyle, change it, because otherwise you're going to lose your health with that.
That is so true. So Armando, what's the perfect day in the life for you?
A perfect day is when I get to interact with students like you, Karen. No, seriously, where we're talking about a concept, and or I'm explaining something, or the students asking me something, they're like, oh wow, I've never heard of it that way.
Yeah.
I've never looked at it that way. When students and I interact, and they give me a perspective, it's like, oh, in Indonesia we do it this way, in Japan we do it this way, or the different perspectives. It's like, oh, or here's how I understood it, because it's something that I always like to check myself, is that just because I'm communicating or transmitting something, that doesn't mean that the student is receiving it.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to what we talked about. Unless the student has a mindset, has opened their eye, what we talked about, First compliment.
Yeah. And then slap. No,
Yeah.
kidding. Gentle wipe.
Nudge. A nudge.
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 Good wording. Be careful.
I don't know if you remember when I tell the students, one of my pet peeves with students is RTFQ.
RTFQ. What's that?
Read the question. When students yesterday I was giving a class, and there's one student, she was like, oh yeah, but this is the case and here's how it works. I'm like, I think what you're saying is great, I think what you're saying is correct, but it's not answering my question.
Yeah, that's true.
And students don't understand that just because you're saying something that's technically correct does not mean that that's what we're asking you for. So it's a question of like, I let her speak.
Yeah.
I said, speak your mind, whatever, that's okay. But we're trying to do this, and that's something that I think it's important for the students to focus on.
Yeah, that's good. And just wondering, like, for every single class, like, how many good student interactions do you get? I remember when I was in your class, I was the only one talking for the longest time, for a few weeks.
And it's something that's a challenge.
Yeah.
There's classes that I'll call on people, and they're like, they won't even answer, like they won't engage, and I think it's very sad because either they're paying $5,000 for it or whatever the current, or their parents are paying for it, or someone's paying for it, and they're not taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the challenges that I feel. That's one of my personal challenges, because no one's telling me you have to have engagement, you have to talk, but it's how do we get a student to come and talk to us? Because I think that interaction over simple questions, over complex questions, is where the value of an education is born. But it's not something that I can't dictate that to the students. I can only invite them to try to engage in the conversation, and that's why I try to challenge them. I try to go to them, have fun. Say, okay, look, try to inject the current events into it. But it's not something that's very easy for us to do as instructors, and it's almost like, how do we do that? And so that is a challenge.
Yeah, and so in that case where you're not getting much student engagement in that particular class, does it still energize you to be teaching or nah?
Oh yeah, because I'm stubborn.
Whoa, so it's unaffected by whether or not.
The thing is, the way I look at it, like some of the students one of the students that is asking for the referral, even though that person didn't engage, I think something in what I said got to them, right? Something that's like, the energy I put into it, somewhere it's like a seed, and it's slowly blooming. It's a very slow seed, but it's not something that I worry about. So it's if I do my part and the students don't do their part, I'm still going to do my part, type of thing.
And you're still going to enjoy it.
Yeah. You have to enjoy it. Like we talked about, that's the meaning of life, enjoying what you do.
That's so good that you can still enjoy yourself despite not getting the feedback that you want. Because sometimes your enjoyment depends on the outcome, depends on people's,
Well, like what you just said, Karen, is right on board. I mean, if you think about it, and I think there's a lot of books talk about it. If I was relying on the students' feedback only, my moods would go up and down based on the students. But if it's based on having the knowledge or having that I don't know if I'm necessarily like the most confident person, but just saying, okay, I feel comfortable and I feel knowledgeable in what I'm doing. I think I'm doing a good effort. That puts me in a good headspace. It puts me in a good place, and I'm happy that I did that. I'm like, I delivered the course. It's like I got through the course. I got through the material. I love when I get it right on time, and I dedicate it, even though like there's challenges or questions, but I did my part. And now the student, because what happens is another thing. Just because the student doesn't engage doesn't mean that they're not learning. Right? Some students that's not their approach, and that's fine. You know, I wish all students were like you and they would ask questions, but I think you saw that in like sometimes like I remember this semester I had a class where there was one student and he was constantly, as soon as I asked the question, was answering it. So I told him, hey, look, do me a favor because I want to have other people's engagement, and I think it's great. Private message me your response, and I'll private message you back. But let's try to get everybody involved because no matter what you do in life, you're not going to do it. Like, we're here in this room because Cameron let us in.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have this room in my office. I don't have this room in my house. So it's all based on somebody else's. So no matter what you do, you have to rely on other people. Yeah. So it's always better. And if you learn to work in teams, and I think that's something that we don't teach enough here, or we don't require in the assignments. People say, oh, we have to do a group assignment, and immediately they're like, oh, why do I have to do another group assignment? Group assignments are a great place. Like, I wish we were doing interdisciplinary group assignments. Yeah. So someone from information systems, someone from accounting, someone from finance, someone from marketing. Because then you start seeing the challenges like, oh yeah, and most of the people here, at UQ, the students, you're not here because you guys are, you know, dummies. You're here because you've done some work. You've done something to get here. So it's like, if you have that, then take advantage. Look at all the people. And like we talked about earlier, looking at a problem from someone else's perspective will give you new insights, and that's something that's invaluable. So.
Oh, that's very good. A good place to end this on. So
great.
Thank you so much for being here, Armando.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, and how was the podcast experience?
The podcast experience was great. Yes. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I didn't even feel that we were being recorded.
Too good. Any surprises?
No. I think, like as I said, I did my homework. I watched Michael's 2-hour podcast.
Wow, that's a good shout out to Michael.
No. And it's something I think I want to congratulate you. No, seriously, because I think that the fact that you're doing this is great. What's your experience like been in doing podcasts?
Me? I mean, I haven't had that much experience. This is probably like the 21st episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But Michael's was the 4th.
Yeah, I've done it.
So you've done 17?
Yeah, I've done a lot since the last time we met in the kitchen.
Yeah. So you're productive. And how do you experience, like, because it's very curious. Like, I see the people doing podcasts, and I'm like, wow, and how, just that energy to get it done and do them, and like you recruit people very quickly. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of nerve-wracking to like, there's like a lot of like, oh, you know, damn, that person might say no. There's like the fear of rejection. But generally, it's like, it's okay, I guess. It's not really to do, it's probably more, like if they say no, it's probably more to do with like the fact that they don't want to be on camera, they don't want to be online. So pretty much doesn't really have much to do with me. So don't take it too personally. I think there has been like, I guess, I've, quotes, become more luckier since creating the podcast, right? Because then sometimes I'm too lazy to, you know, talk to people. But now, like, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, you know, should I invite them on? And then, like, actually having, like, a proper conversation. At the same time, podcasting, I find, is very, very tiring, especially when you do, like, back-to-back interviews. Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah. Doing an interview is a challenge. It's draining. It takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, and then sometimes it's like when I'm replaying it and re-listening to it, that's when I'm starting to enjoy it. I'm like, wow, cool. And then I can actually absorb much more of the content because while I'm here, I am present, but I'm also thinking 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Trying to think about where.
Oh, that must be very tiring, but But congratulations, the fact that you've done 17, and it's great that you're moving forward and you don't stop it. Like, and look, no matter what happens, you just continue. It's like if something bad happened, like if the water spills, you continue like nothing happened. I mean, what's the worst? What's the worst that can happen? And the fact that you're doing this, Karen, I think it's a great thing. And anything you do in life, like I tell people, like, when they try to learn a new language, they're like, oh no, but I'm embarrassed that I'll say something, I'll say it the wrong way, or I'll pronounce it wrong. I go, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, are you going to die? No.
No. And like when you told me, I was like, no, look, you want to do the podcast? I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Unfortunately, I was very busy
So
with work.
busy, yeah.
But I said, yeah, like it really sparked an interest in me, and you sent me that, and I was like, oh, and I saw Michael doing it. I go, if he survives, I should be able to survive.
Yeah. That's a good thing, yeah. Because I think, to be honest, like, getting the first person to do it when I had no infrastructure in place, that was Guy Ramsey. He was my Chinese translation teacher. That was probably, like, the hardest. But once, like, I got Michael, I'm like, oh, you know, hint, hint, Michael has done it. Hint, hint, Len Coote has done it. Hint, hint, Dr. Mark Griffin. So if you have some of your peers, and then that's when the ball starts rolling.
Yeah. And it breaks the ice, and you have such a great way. Like, I had a managing director at a company, and he told me that he had a fish that was a meat eater fish. It was the ugliest fish, but he said him and his mates had it at university because it was a great talking piece. It was a great way to start conversation, and it sucks people in. So when you started saying the podcast, I was like, wow, that's really great for Karen. I hope she really enjoys it, because no matter what happens, you've done it.
Yeah.
You've done something. I think that's a great thing.
Aw, thank you for your encouragement.
No worries.
I'll remember it. Yeah. So let's wrap up this episode. Say bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.